Welcome to the deep dive. We take the sources you care about and, well, extract the crucial insights fast.
Exactly. Think of it as your shortcut to understanding what really matters,
We're here to navigate the details and really bring you the core knowledge.
and maybe how it might apply to your life.
Okay, so today we're venturing into the heart of a talk called The Power of Dharma. Our source material is drawn from the words of Venerable Thich Chan Quang, shared during a talk at Tinjanak Phap in Nha Trang Ri.
Right. And our mission really is to explore the central wisdom offered there.
Yeah, moving beyond just the surface to uncover, the practical implications.
And hopefully find some of those valuable aha moments along the way.
Okay, let's dive in then. The talk opens by sort of painting a picture of two contrasting lives.
Okay.
On one side, you've got someone dedicated to spiritual practice, maybe a monastic, who isn't really engaged in the hustle of business and accumulating wealth.
Right. The typical worldly pursuits.
Exactly. And on the other side, well, that common pursuit of material possessions.
Yes.
But what struck me is the idea that even without that material wealth, those focused on spiritual teachings can achieve really significant positive outcomes.
Not just in this life either.
No, that's the key thing. Not just now, but also in what's referred to as koi iwa.
Which is like the journey after this life ends.
Precisely. That destination after death.
That's interesting. So there's this emphasis on where we might be headed after death.
Yeah, the talk really draws a distinction there between living just with an eye on the present
And having a broader perspective that actually includes our ultimate destination.
It's true, isn't it? We all have a kind of internal vision of the future, from childhood dreams,
Sure, career goals, retirement plans.
all that. But the teaching suggests that a typical worldly viewpoint, well, it often just stops at the moment of death.
Right, that's often seen as the finish line. Which brings up that fundamental question. Okay, so what happens next?
And this is where the perspective shared introduces the principle of karma.
Karma, like the spiritual law of cause and effect.
Exactly. The idea is that our actions, our intentions, they create these ripple effects. And some of those effects might not fully play out in this lifetime.
But they'll have consequences later on, in future lives.
That's the idea presented. Unripened karmic seeds, they call them. That will manifest.
So it's not just about looking back at what we've done, but more about consciously influencing what's still to come.
Yeah, it's like we actually have a hand in designing our future experiences. It's quite proactive, really.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And if we connect this to our lives right now, it sort of encourages us to think beyond just the immediate satisfaction.
Right. Consider the longer-term impact of our choices.
Mm-hmm.
So the talk then gets into how our current actions can shape the specifics of those future circumstances.
Right.
Like, for example, if someone hopes for wealth in a future life, what kind of seeds should they be planting today, according to this teaching?
Well, the teaching highlights actions like generosity, giving,
Giving to what, specifically?
to worthy causes. Things like supporting temples or community infrastructure.
Yeah.
And also offering dedicated service to others.
Yeah.
There's even a story shared about a civil servant who was really diligent in their public service.
Yeah.
And apparently saw positive changes in their own life, kind of illustrating this principle in action.
That's a relatable example. Okay, what about other common desires, like good health or physical appearance?
Right. So according to the ideas presented, cultivating good health for the future involves things like avoiding harm to others
Makes sense.
and actively helping those who are sick, taking care of people.
And appearance. That seems maybe less direct.
Well, here the focus shifts more to our inner state. Kind thoughts are mentioned.
Okay.
And interestingly, careful and respectful communication.
Yeah.
Respectful speech is highlighted as a key influence.
Respectful speech, shaping how we look. Okay, that's definitely thought-provoking.
It is. The talk even suggests a kind of personal reflection, like an experiment.
Uh.
Take a photo of yourself now, and then imagine how consistently practicing respectful speech over, say, 5 years might subtly shift your appearance.
Wow, so it's not about cosmetics, but the inner cultivation showing outwardly.
That seems to be the core idea. It's emphasizing the power of our words, not just on others, but maybe somehow on ourselves too.
That consistent mindfulness and communication could have a deeper impact than we might realize.
Exactly.
And this idea then kind of expands out, doesn't it, to a community level, using Nha Trang as an example, since it's a tourist spot.
Right. The point is made that residents, through their conduct, how they dress, maintaining cleanliness, how they speak to visitors.
They become representatives.
Yeah, representatives of their entire nation, in a way.
So if we link this back to the main theme, it's underscoring how our individual actions, even the small ones,
Contribute to a larger collective outcome. It's about recognizing that interconnectedness.
Okay. Now, while many might wish for wealth and beauty, the talk suggests something else is even more challenging to cultivate for the future.
Wisdom and talent.
Right. That raises an interesting point about what we truly value, doesn't it?
It does. How do we lay the groundwork for intellectual growth and skill in the long run?
Well, what does the teaching suggest?
It shares a story. A farmer who donated land for a school.
Okay.
And the implication is that such contributions to education can lead to intellectual capacity in future lives.
That's a powerful image. But for those of us, who might not have land to donate,
Right.
what are some everyday ways to foster that future wisdom?
The teachings emphasize practical actions. Supporting students, maybe with books or supplies.
Okay.
Showing respect for teachers, that's a big one.
Respect for educators, yeah.
And crucially, sharing your own knowledge and insights with others, whatever, pass it on.
So it's like an active participation in the exchange of knowledge, not just receiving.
Exactly. It's presented as this continuous cycle of learning and giving. Profound talent, it suggests, often stems from consistent positive actions like these over many lifetimes.
Many lifetimes. Okay. So that brings us to a fifth vital element mentioned for a fulfilling future, our spiritual and moral development. To Tumling Dao Dek.
Yes. This feels like the bedrock, doesn't it?
It really does.
And the teaching cautions against being misled,
Hmm.
by spiritual paths that might actually be harmful or deceptive.
Da doubt, they call it. Misleading paths.
Right, emphasizing the importance of aligning ourselves with ethical, righteous principles.
And this pursuit of inner growth, it's presented as something fundamentally human.
Yeah, almost like a natural drive. Perhaps what distinguishes us most, in our awareness of our own mortality compared to animals.
So, with all the different spiritual paths out there, how does one discern? How do you know which ones are truly beneficial?
Well, the talk points to figures like the Buddha, Lao Tzu, Confucius, as examples of genuine spiritual guides.
Okay, historical anchors.
Right. The key, it suggests, is finding a path that leads to genuine inner freedom, real liberation, and doesn't create negative consequences down the line.
So building that strong spiritual and moral foundation, it's seen as a way to navigate suffering.
Yes, and also to become a source of support for others.
Okay. Now, a significant portion of the talk focuses specifically on reverence for the Buddha. What's the core message there?
What seems compelling is the idea that connecting with the teachings of the Buddha and taking refuge in what's called the triple gem, the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha, is presented as a particularly powerful step on our spiritual journey.
Powerful how?
The talk highlights the immense positive impact, the merit, that comes from deeply respecting the Buddha. He's described as someone who is fully awakened.
Right.
And is therefore an inexhaustible source of positive influence or blessings. The deeper the respect, the greater the benefit.
The term unkung is used, worthy of offerings. What does that signify exactly?
Well, unkung is a title reserved for beings who've reached complete liberation, like the Buddha.
Okay, so it's special.
Very. It signifies the unique value and impact of offerings made to such individuals compared to offerings made to those still, on the path.
Got it.
And the positive energy, the merit, generated from this reverence is said to actually protect us.
Protect us from what?
From negative actions, from making mistakes. And it guides us towards virtuous ones.
There's a story mentioned, isn't there, about someone who made a seemingly small mistake.
Yes, that had legal repercussions.
And it's linked somehow to a lack of this positive spiritual energy, this merit.
Exactly. It suggests that this merit can act as a kind of subtle protection in our lives, helping us avoid missteps and their consequences.
Like a buffer.
Sort of. And the upcoming anniversary of Venerable Thich Quang is also mentioned as an example of honoring such a revered spiritual figure.
Right. So what are the ongoing benefits, then, of cultivating this deep respect for the Buddha?
The teaching suggests it's a gradual process. It reduces negative thoughts and actions,
Okay.
while nurturing positive qualities within us. Things like compassion, wisdom.
And ultimately,
Ultimately, profound, absolute reverence is said to lead to a significant step on the path to enlightenment. The first stage, known as Tu Ahung.
Ku Ahong. And this state is described Well, it's described as someone who might appear quite ordinary on the outside.
Yeah, seemingly ordinary, yet possessing really deep insight, wisdom, and compassion.
That's a fascinating contrast. The potential consequences of either overlooking or recognizing such a being are also highlighted.
Indeed, it really emphasizes the idea that true wisdom isn't always outwardly obvious. You have to look deeper.
Okay, shifting focus a bit now. The talk addresses a very modern challenge, one that I think really resonates today. Maintaining our spiritual connection in a world increasingly dominated by technology, especially smartphones.
Ah, yes. The digital age dilemma.
Definitely. What's important to consider here, according to the talk, is how the constant stimulation and convenience from our devices.
The endless entertainment, the notifications.
Exactly, how that can sometimes overshadow the quieter appeal of spiritual practices, or even just communal gatherings at places like temples.
And it affects younger people, perhaps more noticeably.
That's suggested, yeah. The allure is strong.
So the talk raises the question, where does the responsibility lie for this shift? Is it just the tech itself?
Or is there something more fundamental at play? The teaching seems to suggest that.
Yeah.
Well, perhaps those sharing the wisdom of the Dharma haven't always found the most effective ways to communicate its enduring power in today's context.
So the strength of the core principles remains, obviously.
Absolutely. It's asserted that the Dharma's strength is ultimately greater than any worldly attraction.
But its presentation and, maybe more importantly, its practical application in people's lives are crucial.
Right. The idea is floated that maybe a lack of consistent embodiment of core Buddhist principles might be a factor.
You mean things like sila, samadhi, prajna, morality, concentration, wisdom?
Exactly. The suggestion is that if practitioners and teachers aren't consistently living these principles,
It might make the message less compelling, less attractive.
that seems to be the implication. The point is made that when individuals genuinely live by these principles, sila, samadhi, prajna,
Their sincerity, their inner peace, it becomes noticeable.
yes, it naturally draws others to explore the teachings. Ethical conduct builds trust.
Right. People can often sense authenticity.
And meditative practice, samadhi, cultivates that inner peace and stability. While prajna, wisdom, offers profound understanding.
Qualities that offer a kind of lasting happiness, right? Something that goes beyond those fleeting digital pleasures.
That's the core argument, that the Dharma offers something much deeper and more satisfying.
So what's the call to action here then? What's being encouraged?
Well, it seems to be twofold. First, for practitioners themselves to really reconnect with and truly live by these core values, jivi, tut, sila, samadhi, prajna.
Rediscover and embody them.
Yes. And second, it urges listeners, well, you, to actively seek out genuine spiritual mentors, people who actually embody these qualities.
And to cultivate your own spiritual and ethical development through these principles.
Exactly. And finally, it emphasizes the importance of sharing these teachings, sharing the Dharma with others.
Why is that emphasized?
Because it's presented as a powerful way to create positive change, both for others and for yourself. It's seen as a way to accumulate that positive spiritual merit we talked about earlier.
Right. Contributing to well-being all around.
Okay, so to kind of wrap up, we've explored the power of living by righteous principles, the Dharma.
And the idea that our actions today, our karma, really do shape our future experiences, potentially across lifetimes.
We touched on the vital role of spiritual and moral growth as the foundation.
And the profound significance placed on reverence for the Buddha as a path towards inner peace and, well, a positive trajectory for our lives.
Navigating the challenges of the modern world, too.
Definitely.
And perhaps the most compelling idea to leave you, the listener, with is to really consider the immense potential held within these ancient teachings.
Yeah, and how actively engaging with them in your own life right now
Could unlock a deeper sense of peace, maybe more wisdom, and genuinely contribute to a more positive future.
not just for yourself, but for those around you too.
Yeah.
That's really the depth of this exploration, isn't it?
It really is. Lots to think about there.